Hi guys, this is Dormouse03, and this is The Evil Within, Akumu difficulty, Chapter 6. And so, you remember how we've been saving up ammo and trap parts and all that stuff throughout the first chapters of this game, and you know, we used it a little bit freely in Chapter 5, but this is really the first moment where you're going to be really, really happy if you've saved up all this ammo. Because this chapter is, I would say, the first really difficult chapter of the game. And some people might say the most difficult chapter of the game. This is where you have several very, very tough fights that take, you know, a lot of ammo and involve both skill and luck and having a good plan and also being able to be flexible with that plan. So you'll see that I was just using my keys here at the beginning. I'm looking at the state of my upgrades here and going to make sure I have my flashbolt at level 3, and I put my explosive and shock up to level 3 as well. The higher you can get those, at least the shock and the flash, the higher level they are, the more seconds they immobilize people, and that's really what you want right now. You want to be able to keep people occupied for as long as possible for this particular set of rooms coming up. And the higher you've leveled that, I think the easier time you're going to have, because you're going to have them incapacitated for a longer period of time, and that means you're going to have to use fewer of the resources. And so that's going to be really, really helpful here in the first section of this chapter, because the first 2 rooms of this chapter are just pure insanity. So I hope that you are prepared. So I'm going to be showing you and telling you about my strategy to getting through the first part of this chapter, which is probably the most difficult part of this chapter. It's certainly the most frustrating part of the game thus far, and one of the most frustrating parts of the entire thing, because the rooms coming up are different from the rooms that you've been facing in chapters 4 and 5, where you had a bunch of enemies. Because in chapters 4 and 5, you felt like you had more control over the situation. You know, you knew where people were going to spawn out of, you could lay some traps, you could have sort of a solid game plan. And with this, it just feels a whole lot more random, and so it relies a lot more on the ability to just play the game. So you have to be mechanically just better at playing, and you also have to be able to adapt your strategy, you know, based on what happens, because there is a lot of randomness. So we will get there, but first we're going to pick up all the resources here at the beginning, make sure we go in as stocked as possible. There's your first key of this chapter in that window right there. And here it comes, guys. So the strategy that I'm going to use uses probably more bolt resources than anything else. So let's see how this goes. When you respawn from the checkpoint right here, you want to be moving right away, because there's a hatchet guy from the left window that will often kill you immediately, which is really frustrating, but that's what I do at the very beginning. I sort of run around those guys, try to herd them to the left so that I can get them both with the barrel. Pick up the things from that desk, and then I'm going to use some bolts. So I plant an explosive right there, I shotgun this lady, and then I'm going to start moving this barrel over. It wouldn't go exactly where I wanted it to. I want it to be near the window. So that took a little bit longer than I wanted it to, but here we go. We hit the barrel to get some of the people coming in that window right there, and then it's shotgun on running around like a crazy person and trying to, control the situation as best you can here. So now I'm going to start using some flash bolts here. And for whatever reason, that guy did not get flashed and started to hurt Joseph. I don't know if he was stunned before I used the flash bolt or whatever, but that made this section take a little bit longer than it probably should have, because if anybody gets over there and starts messing around with Joseph, it's going to take him longer to open the door. So right now I'm just using flash bolt, flash bolt, flash bolt. I pick up this hatchet that one of the enemies dropped and take out one person. And you could probably you could probably be killing some of these people right now, but I'm using the flash bolts because they're a pretty cheap resource. But you could probably get through that fight without using as many of them as I do. So if you don't have quite as many trap parts, I would say try to get through that using fewer of the bolts if you're having trouble. So this second room is even worse. So I immediately kick this barrel over the middle because I want them both to be able to get some enemies. And I head over here under the stairs, and this is where I'm going to sit for a second and try to control the situation for a moment. But I'm not going to stay under here too long because I've had the situation where I've tried to hang out back here, and it becomes there are too many people in that area, and you can't get them all, and it's just irritating. So I flash them, and then I use these barrels to get a few of them dead, heal Joseph up, or try to, and then it's just run, get your flash bolts back on, and try to control the situation as best you can. Right there, I could have easily gotten grabbed and died. That's just the randomness of this game. Sometimes this room, like I said before, it requires, some skill with what you're doing and some luck too. Make sure you don't flash them until they start to come out of the stun, because if you don't wait, they won't get stunned, and then the people running into the room will also not be stunned when they drop down. So you gotta be aware of that when you flash people, they may not all get flashed. So I planted some explosives just to make sure that I didn't get screwed while I was trying to make some more flash bolts, and now that's why I don't hang out in that corner. Because I heard the door go and I needed to get out, and you need to be able to get around people. So, woo! That is that room. Again, it was really heavy on the bolts. The flash bolts are your cheapest bolt, though, so be aware of that. Here's your sniper rifle. And we have a couple seconds here before we get back into the fray. So yeah, that's it, guys. I wish you luck. I was doing those two rooms for probably a little over an hour, trying to make that work, because I don't know, you could use some different bolts there. You could use some freeze bolts, are really good for crowd control. You can use some shock bolts, which are really good for crowd control. So do what you have to do there. That was just kind of my strategy. I wanted to try to use the flashes as much as possible just to be able to have more of them, and you saw how many it took. It's utter insanity, and that's with upgrades. So, I would definitely recommend having that flash bolt as upgraded as you can for that sequence. And good luck getting through it, because if you get through that part, honestly, you will have the patience to get through the rest of the game, because that is your first true test of frustration, because that's one of the only parts in this game where it just feels so random and downright unfair sometimes. So now we're moving on to this next section here, and I use that little spot a lot to be able to get the enemies out of this room right here. So what I'm going to do is kick open the door here to get their attention, and then I'm going to run away, run down to the bottom of these stairs here, and kind of hide. And generally, by the time they bust through the door, they won't know that you're down here. So you feel a little bit exposed, but they can't see you, and they sort of run out. And then when they all start turning around to go back inside, you can usually get the last one. You'll see it happen, you know, after I kill a couple of these guys, that they will start not coming as far back. And so I'm going to have to start using some ammo, which is okay, because again, I've saved up to be able to do that. Because I knew this chapter right here is very, very heavy on using resources, and so you want to have things saved up. And now there is ammunition around this area, but there's not a ton of it because resources are scarce on this difficulty. And so you see how they sort of stop a little bit sooner, and then they turn around and they get a little bit caught up going back through the door there. But sometimes that will happen where you just can't get a good angle on any of them. And you just have to be patient, because this section is by far a breath of air after that last sequence that you did. And so, you know, you probably are a little bit... This guy saw me for whatever reason. I don't know how. Randomness. Maybe Sebastian had a little bit of hair sticking up, and he saw that. I don't know. Generally they can't see you there, but sometimes I guess they do. But this strategy is kind of slow, but it works. And again, after doing that last sequence, you'll probably want something that's a little bit slower, because it's just fast-paced action, 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 going, getting screwed, starting again, dying from a hatchet in the face immediately, going again. And so I start trying to shoot these guys because they just aren't going to come down as far as I want them to at this point. And so now there's only a few people left in the room. I think somebody threw a bottle and it hit the door or something, and so that might have killed somebody in there. I don't know, but if that doesn't happen, just be prepared to kill another guy or two. We have the room pretty much cleared out, though, because, yep, here comes maybe our last guy. There's quite a lot of them in this room. They're dressed like clowns, and it is like a clown car in there. Alright, so there he goes. Put a match on him. He decided to be generous to us and actually stay downed for long enough to get the match. And I believe that might have been the last guy in here. So be careful in this room. There are a ton of those spinny traps. So just be aware of that. Joseph, thank God, cannot set them off. If he could set off those spinny traps and it made you deactivate them right there, that would be so much worse. But I flicked that switch because that will open up a room with some resources in it that you can get a little bit later on. So I went ahead and did that, and here's going to be your checkpoint as you come up this stair. Well, the stairwell. And then here's going to be a crossfade because it took a couple tries to perfect this run here. But I think this is a pretty good way of doing it. So if you run forward straight away after the checkpoint, you won't get hit by the harpoons. And then you want to shoot the guy really quickly and then move back up so that you don't get hit by any of those harpoon bolts. And so there are 4 guys that you want to kill. Here's the second one. You go down there, you shoot him in the face. You move back up so that you don't get hit by the harpoons. And then I'm going to move up this way. If you run by these traps, they won't go off. Sit right here, snipe that guy, and then sort of hang out right there. And so now this part is a little bit random. I try to just move as quickly as possible because you don't want Joseph to get to where he falls off of that little bridge there. The one dude got in my way, so I missed sniping this person, but it worked out okay. Is just run and try to get down in this area. And as long as Joseph stays alive and doesn't fall off of the bridge in the middle there, you'll be okay. Which is why I tried to move through that as quickly as possible, because if you take too long, he will do that preset thing where he'll fall off the bridge, and that will be really difficult to come back from. But here's a little crossfade. I got kind of screwed because when the checkpoint hit, there were a couple of guys still in that room. But when you respawn right back here, and all of the regular enemies will be despawned. So at this point, if you're running low on ammo, you can run around the area. There are no more enemies in the area, and you could run around and pick it up. But I chose not to do that and just get this fight out of the way. So I immediately flash him, get a stab in, and this just helps me get some room here to be able to change my bolts up a little bit. So I throw the explosives down on the ground because I can't tell you the amount of times when I have tried to put an explosive bolt onto the enemy, and by them running close to me, the bolt blew up and the residual damage killed me. So that's why I put those into the ground. You'll get more damage most likely if you put them into his body, but that was just my way of playing it safe. And then I'm going to put a bunch of shotgun shells into his torso and face. And I believe this last one takes him out. So use what you have there. Again, if you're more confident in putting the explosive bolts into him and being able to run away, that will probably save you some ammunition right there. But that is pretty much the first half of this chapter done, and then we're going to run around and pick up stuff. So here's the room. You want to hit the left lever, and you'll get some ammunition and upgrade gel and parts and stuff in that room right there. And then just be very, very careful of traps, because if you get killed by one of the traps right now, you have not gotten a checkpoint yet, and you will respawn back before you killed the chainsaw guy, which is not too bad. Right there, I hit a trap, so be careful of that one right there. That there was a tripwire that I didn't see. But I got very lucky and had moved past the point where the trap could kill me. So be aware of that one, and all of the spinny bomb traps around in here, which I've used a bunch of bolts at this point, and I don't have that many trap parts left because I used a ton of them in that other sequence. But at this point, I just was not confident with my abilities to get those spinny traps, so I didn't get them. But that's a bunch of trap parts that are available to you if you are more confident with doing that trap. And you know, having played through the rest of the game and and getting better at that little mini game, I guess it is, at disarming those. I probably would have tried to get some right here, but I didn't. And you don't have to, because you can get through a lot of the rest of this without needing the traps. It's going to be a while before you'll really need the bolts anymore. So, in any case, there was the statue that I hit with the sniper rifle. I tried to hit it with the pistol. I tried to see if I could throw a bottle at it. It looks like you just have to hit it with a sniper bullet, and that's just all that there is to it. And then we're gonna run up here and be able to go into the wonderful save room. There's your next map fragment. And Diary of Sebastian. And we're going to be able to go in and do a little bit more upgrading and save the game, because those you don't want to do those first sections again. You really don't. Once you get through them, you're going to be pretty done with them. At least I was. So I wish you the best of luck on that first section. The second section, the one that we just did, I feel like that's a lot more easy to replicate, because the enemies are on more of a pattern, and it has better checkpoints. And checkpoints do make a huge difference. If there had been a checkpoint in between those first two rooms, it would not have been nearly the hell that it was. So, you know, I hope you can get through those first two rooms, guys, and I hope that I was able to help you to be successful in any way that I could. And just know that you did one of the toughest parts of this game, and we'll move on to some ones that are, also tough. So I will see you in the next part of Chapter 6. Thanks for watching.